Shalom friends, welcome to the Ahavat Yisrael Podcast, live from Old City Radio in the Old City of Jerusalem.
We're going to take that Tilim with missiles that Hamas is sending to us on a daily basis, add the hay, and turn it into healing.
We're going to give our kids to you, and we're going to make raising them about you.
There's an overwhelming feeling of holiness in the Old City that you can't compare to anywhere else.
Shalom, my friends. We're here working on Ahavat Yisrael, loving our fellow Jew. And it's very important because our sages and people in the know teach us that this is the key to everything. Jewish unity, achdut, is the key. And when we don't have it, that's when trouble starts. And one of my students, he just got out of Gaza, and he was saying that all the soldiers were talking, and they knew it was going to happen. It was building up, like August, September, October. They knew it was going to happen. Why? Not because of anything happening on the border, although obviously we found out that there were training exercises, but because they saw so much disunity. We were fighting amongst us. And Hashem says basically, look, I can deal with it when you don't do everything I tell you to do. When you do something against me in our relationship, I kind of deal with that. But when you guys are fighting amongst each other, that's a problem. I don't like that. I find also with my own children, when my children don't do what I say, I can kind of deal with it. But when they're fighting and arguing with each other, which thank God doesn't happen so much, but when they do, it's very upsetting. So Hashem says the same thing. I want you guys to love each other, and then we can get along, and then you'll have my protection, and then we can do the job that we're meant to do as a Jewish people. And we've been speaking about the idea that we can love and respect people even if they have different values. As long as their values aren't harmful and evil, if they have different values, different beliefs, we can still love and respect each other. And we've really said that there are three levels of Ahavat Yisrael. One is you can't love someone fully as much as you love yourself, but you love people because they're people and they're a human and you're a human and you've got to try and love them. The higher level is, no, I can love them actually as myself because on a spiritual level, on a soul level, then they are part of myself, we're part of the Jewish people. And then we said there's the highest level, which is, my Rebbe says we can only really get there in the times of Mashiach, is that you love someone more than you love yourself, because Einod Milvada, there's only Hashem, and you love Hashem, and everything's part of Hashem, and we all are nullified into this big, beautiful ball of divine light and love. Bezrat Hashem. So we're going to talk about that, break it down a little bit more, and it's an idea we mentioned before, but there's an idea of conditional love and unconditional love. Ahava she'tuluya b'davar, ve'ahava she'eino tuluya b'davar. A love that depends on something, and a love that's independent, which is unconditional love. And they're both important and they're both good. They're both good. We love people because we see the good in people. And some people are just easier to love. They're just nicer people. So on the one level is this conditional love. And that's to do with the first level of Ahavat Yisrael. That I love you because you got good character traits and you got good values, and I like talking to you and we like hanging out. So I love each person individually. It's not the second level where I love you in a general way, in an unconditional way, just because you're Jewish. I love you because, and that means I love different people more or less based on their values and based on our connection, how we communicate, and if we enjoy the same things. So that's the first level, and that was on the level of body. We said last time there's the body and the soul, and then Hashem. Those are our three levels. Then there's the higher level, which is you just love Jews. You love Jews. It's an unconditional type of love. It's not like I love you because you make me feel good or you got good character traits. I just love the fact that you're a Jew. And it often happens, I traveled in Asia for 6 years before I was that deeply connected to my Jewish identity. But I just loved when you bump into some random Jew in the middle. I remember being in India, northern India, and I was at a waterfall in the middle of nowhere, and this guy came to the waterfall. He'd also hiked up. And it turned out that he was Jewish, and it was amazing. And we connected. Obviously, in India and Thailand, there are loads of Israeli backpackers. So I used to hang out with the Israeli backpackers very often, and we had Hanukkah together and Pesach together. So I had a strong Jewish identity, and I liked being around Jewish people because we're a family. We're a family, and it's very, very special. I actually used to run trips to Thailand and Sri Lanka and India and Nicaragua for Jews. Mainly from America, but I took a whole range of Jewish people, literally from the most unaffiliated, completely not connected Jewish person two like Hasidic people. And I put them together in these trips, and we go off hiking into the mountains of Peru and India and Thailand and Nicaragua. And they were amazing trips. And I often put the most Hasidic person with the most unaffiliated person in the same room, and it would create amazing relationships. And once I had finished a trip in Nicaragua. So the capital of Nicaragua is Managua. And I had a flight home, and the flight was going from Managua to Miami. And then I had a 5-hour layover in Miami. And then I was going from Miami to Newark. Newark, I had 1 hour and 20 minutes, and then a flight to Tel Aviv. So I got to Miami, and I waited for 4 hours, and I went to the gate, and I fell asleep at the gate. And about 10 minutes before takeoff time, I woke up suddenly. The gate was empty. The people were still at the desks. I ran up to the desk. I said, "I'm here. Get me on the flight." And they said, "No, sorry, the flight's full now." And I said, "What do you mean? I got my ticket. I checked in. I know you haven't taken off yet. And you never take off on time. Just let me on." And they said, "No, we gave it to a standby passenger. And you can't come on now." And if I missed that flight, I was going to miss my connecting flight in Newark. So I said, "Well, what can I do?" So they said, "Go to the United Airlines office, down there, and they'll see what they can do for you." So I went to the office, and they said, "We've got a flight leaving now. It's actually boarding now to Frankfurt. It's about a 12-hour flight to Frankfurt. And then you have an 11-hour wait in Frankfurt. And then from there, you go to Tel Aviv." And that's the best we got. So I said, fine. They printed me a boarding card. And I went and I got on the flight, obviously too late to order kosher food. So I sat there, and they came round and they said, "Do you want this treif food or this treif food? Treif chicken or treif beef?" And I was like, "Do you have any spare kosher meals?" So they went to check, and they came back and said there are only 2 kosher meals ordered on this flight. So I was like, "Okay, so just bring me some fruit." Came back about 5 minutes later and gave me a kosher meal. And I said, "What happened?" And they said, "Well, the woman is here with her daughter, and the daughter's already fallen asleep. So the woman said you can have the meal." So that was great. I had the meal. In the morning, she came and brought me kosher breakfast, and I said, "Hold on, what's going on?" And she said, the woman said her daughter's still asleep, so you can have the breakfast. So I asked her to tell me where this person was sitting. So I went and I found this woman, very, very clearly secular, unaffiliated Jewish woman. And I said to her, "Hi, well, thank you so much for the food, but I don't want to take away kosher food from you and your daughter." And she said, "Well, it's okay because we actually don't keep kosher." And I said, "Okay, so why did you order kosher food?" And she said, "It's the first time I've ever ordered kosher food on a flight. It's just my daughter falls asleep very, very quickly, and I know that the kosher food comes first. So I ordered her a kosher meal just in case, she could eat before she fell asleep, but it didn't work." So I said, "Okay." So I still said I actually gave the meal back because I didn't want to take away their kosher food. And so I arrived in Frankfurt, and I had 11 hours to wait. And I saw that there was a flight to Israel 7 hours later. So I said, right, I'm going to try and get on that flight. And I had to take a shuttle bus to another terminal, which I could do because I have a British passport, so I could leave the terminal. And I get to this other terminal, and I get there, and they said, "You can't get on that flight, it's completely full, but here's 50 euros, you can go and buy yourself food." So I had kosher food. So I went and I sat down somewhere in this other terminal. And I went to contact my wife to tell her I'm going to be late. And 2 seats away from me where I'd sat down, there was this guy with shaved head, this proper skinhead. And he looked over at me and he said, "You're Jewish, aren't you?" So I was like, "Well, yeah." I had my beard and my tzitzit. And so I said, "Yeah." So he said to me, "I've just been to the Ukraine. There are lots of Jews in the Ukraine." So I was like, "Okay. I hear that." And then he looked at me and he said, "I'm Jewish." And I was like, there we go. This is bageling. I don't know if you've heard of bageling, but it's when people come up to you and they want you to know that they're Jewish, so they hint it. It very often happens to me, by the way, now that I look like a religious Jew. People come up to me in the middle of some random airport in America, and they're like, "Shalom." So I'm like, "Shalom, you're Jewish?" And they're like, "Yes." I'm like, "Great." So anyway, he said, "I'm Jewish." So I said, "Okay, great." So we started talking. And he said to me that like 8 years earlier, he'd started putting on tefillin. And he put on tefillin every day, but then his auntie died. And then a few weeks later, his grandmother died, and he got very, very upset with Hashem. So he stopped putting on tefillin. And so we started talking, about emunah and neshamas and souls, and there's life beyond this world and all these things. And he was really getting some comfort in this. And eventually he said to me, "Do you have your tefillin with you?" And I said, yeah, sure. You can put on my tefillin if you want. So they said, yeah, I'd love to put on tefillin. And by the way, I'm thinking to myself, Hashem's unbelievable that he made me miss that flight and took me to this random terminal in Frankfurt, giving me kosher food all the way, by the way, just to help this Jew put on tefillin again after 8 years. So he said to me, look, I'm a bit embarrassed just to put it on in the middle of the airport in Germany. And lots of Muslims walking around. And I said, fine, let's go and find a quiet corner. So we got up and we walked around the corner, literally about 20 meters away. I don't know how many feet that is, work it out. We walked around the corner and there was a big sign, Jewish prayer room. So Hashem had placed me in this other terminal next to this Jewish person who needed to put on tefillin 20 meters from the Jewish prayer room. So we went up there and there was a beautiful Aron HaKodesh and the library in there and Sfarim. And I said to him, do you need help? And he goes, no, I remember. And I'm still in touch with him to this day. And he puts on his tefillin, Baruch Hashem, from France, the French Jew. So there's something with just the Jewish people. So that's Ahava she'eino teluya b'davar. It's not on an individual basis. I love people just because they're Jewish. I love Jewish people. I love the concept of the Jewish people. And in fact, in that way, you kind of overlook anybody's individual stuff. Is really saying, I don't love the individual for his character traits. I just love the Jewish people. So my Rebbe says that's the higher level. The level of the body is ahava she'teluya b'davar. My love is dependent on your character traits and what I think of you. Then there's a higher level. My love's not dependent. I just love Jews. But he said, even in that higher level, we are human. We still do have bodies. So it's usually actually a mix. We love Jews in general, but we love some Jews more than other Jews because they're just nicer. They're easier to love. We have the same values. It's much easier to love someone who has the same values as you. Even though we're trying to go beyond that, there really is this third level. The third level is where, no, I've actually really let go of my individual biases and my individual conditions. And I've just gone into this level of Ein od milvado, there's only Hashem, and I'm not dividing anymore. I just see through godly eyes. I just see the pintele yid, which means the inner Jewish spark. And Rabbi Nachman speaks about this a lot, and maybe this is a very mix between teluya b'davar, conditional and unconditional love. He says every single Jew and ultimately every single person has good in them. And you just got to zoom focus in on the good in other people. Zoom focus. So everyone has it, every Jew has it, and at least it's just because they're a yid. There's a yid, he's got an neshama. So we love people based on what we focus on. So if we just focus on the negative, obviously we won't love them. If we focus on the good character traits, that's good, but it's conditional. But if you focus on that they're a pintele yid, they've got this little Jewish beautiful spark within them, it's a very high level, then we can just love people completely and fully. And obviously it all starts with ourselves. How do we see ourselves? Do we love ourselves? Do we judge ourselves on our good character traits? Or do we go even deeper and just say, you know what, I love that I'm a Jew. And every morning we say this bracha, Shelo asani goy, we say this bracha that, I'm a Jew. It's just that in itself is a wonderful thing and something to be so excited and grateful for, the greatest people who ever walked the face of the planet. So this is where we're trying to go. We're raising our consciousness up from individual body-conscious conditional love into a higher soul-conscious love of the Jewish people on a soul level. And then eventually, Bezrat Hashem, we're going to reach this level of seeing through godly eyes. Ein od milvado. It's the father. The father just loves the child completely unconditionally, even if they got bad character traits, even if they don't follow in their ways. They just love the child just completely. Bezrat Hashem, we should all be zeicher to reach that level of self-love and then being able to spread that to all our fellow Yidden. Be'ezrat Hashem.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Old City Radio. Hope to see you again very soon.
Remember, this isn't just information, there's tools and practical wisdom to completely transform your life.